time to unveil our 2010 All Gazette basketball teams. We're going to start out by giving you the first team girls, second team girls, then the first team boys, second team boys, and then at the end we'll give you the coaches of the year and then the players of the year. So starting with the girls' first team, Shannon Smith of Forest View, Hunter Huss's Keevee Hall, Forest View guard Kelsey Harris, Ashbrook guard Justin Taylor, and East Lincoln forward Lindsey Wright. Richard, tell us your thoughts on our first team.
Well, certainly it's hard not to honor the two girls from Forest View, Smith and Harris, who have really been terrific players, really for all 4 of their years. Win a state championship this year, and then you throw in Lindsey Wright going to Wake Forest, Justin Taylor going to Winston-Salem State, Keevee Hall. Not sure what her future plans are, but a good all-around player. Led there in steals, another solid group. I mean, in a lot of ways, this was the easiest of our choices this year because these 5 players stood really head and shoulders kind of above the rest in many respects, particularly in team success.
Second team might have been a little more difficult to pick. Our second team is Bree Armstrong, the Forest View freshman, Haley Black at East Gaston, Leah Graham from Highland Tech, Megan Harden from Hunter Huss, and Brittany Roberts from Kings Mountain. So now we move on to the boys' first team. Start with Terry Wisnett of Cherryville, Thomas Best of Cherryville. Then we have a pair of Hunter Huss players, John Tavian Hall and Jihad Wright. And finally, Forest View's Chris Johnson. Richard, your thoughts on the first team boys?
The boys' teams were probably we talked about the most because this side of really Terry Wisnett and John Tavian Hall, who are the respected players of the year in the 2 conferences that we cover the most, you could make a lot of arguments for probably 15, even 20 players to be considered for first and second team. I think our feeling was that Thomas Bass was 20-point scorer, a good all-around player. Clearly, I mean, he certainly gets lost a lot of times because Wisnett is so good, but a very solid, good all-around athlete. Then Forest View, the record doesn't really reflect maybe the quality of their season. They ended up sharing the Big South Conference Championship with Hunter Huss. Played a real challenging schedule. Forest View's Johnson was probably their most solid player throughout the season, and then it's really hard picking between some of the other Huss players because Jihad Wright and T.J. Wilson are kind of interchangeable, but Jihad Wright, if you look at the shooting percentage, might be as efficient a player as I've ever seen because I think he ended up shooting 70-something% from the field. If it wasn't a good shot, he simply didn't take it, and I think that kind of swung the vote in his direction.
And maybe the most difficult job we had was picking this boys' second team because there are a lot of guys that we considered and we couldn't get them on there. So our 5 spots on this second team are Hans Braze of Gaston Day, Giovanni Dotson of North Gaston, Darius Howell of Cherryville, Christian Lawrence of South Point, and T.J. Wilson of Hunter Huss. On to the coach of the year. We had Ken Beatty of Forest View, who led the girls' team to a state championship, and Ron Bray at Hunter Huss, who led the Huskies to the first regional appearance since '06. Your thoughts on the coaches of the year, Richard?
In a weird sort of way, it strikes me that the girls' coach of the year, it almost took Coach Beatty winning a state title because, you couldn't be around the Highland program without them talking about how terrific a job Jerry Jordan did in helping turning that program around. They'd really struggled historically, but this year they were, I think, 3rd place in their conference overall, certainly the top 1A seed. But, when you start off a year with the biggest target on your back that I've seen maybe ever in high school sports around here with what Ken Beatty had at Forest View and accomplished last year and then coming back, I mean, I'd say they met and even exceeded expectation because the way they handled the season. I mean, their only losses were to 2 of the final 8 in 4A competition, including 4A champion in Butler. So, just a solid all-around year for Forest View, and certainly he deserves all the accolades he can get for keeping that team focused. Because the thing that I think is hard to do when you're such a favorite as they were is have your team play loose and have fun, and they clearly did that throughout the year. As for the boys' coach, a lot of different candidates there, but given that Huss kind of finessed it without really a true actual point guard this year, and there's little doubt that they've got a great deal of talent, but I think they finished as strong as anybody around. They lost to High Brighton they probably could have gone. I felt they would push them a little more, but
Right.
they ended up winning the conference tournament. They tied for the regular season title, so a really solid year for Hunter Haas, and good job for Coach Bray to kind of pull all those guys together and get them all going in the same direction when they had such a very tangible weakness at point guard.
And finally, our big awards, our Players of the Year. First of all, with the girls, Shannon Smith from Forest View, the senior guard who is going to North Carolina. She averaged 23.2 points and 7.2 assists, and obviously she was MVP of the state title game. On the boys' side, Terry Wiston of Cherryville averaged 27.5 points per game, 7.3 rebounds, 4.2 assists. He shot 51% from three-point range and 54% from the field. Richard, how easy were these selections for Player of the Year?
They were one of the easiest things we did. I mean, Shannon Smith might be as good a girls basketball player we've ever had around here. I mean, you could certainly make that case, particularly given her the record and the accomplishments her team had. I mean, the first public school to win a state title since the 70s, and the first to win an NCHSA, because that in the 70s was when it was the old Western Association. And then Terry Wiston, has done a terrific job at Cherryville, and certainly they ought to be motivated by it's back-to-back years now. They've lost to Bishop McGinnis, and next year I suspect in his senior year he'll be eager to come back for more. And if precedent means anything, it's a little bit like what Shannon Smith went through a year ago, because she was our Player of the Year a year ago, and they finished a state runner-up and came into the season. And like we're talking about with Coach Beatty, I mean, Shannon led that team from day one, and there was a resolve about them to get back to win a state title, because I think they felt like they should have won it a year ago, and they met that expectation.
Thanks for joining us. As always, we welcome your feedback. Send that to sports@gastonGazette.com. We'd like to know what you think about the team, who we left off that should have been on, and check out the print version in Sunday's paper.